Boom, we're live. Welcome back to another episode of these crazy people who can't stop talking about eating meat and still can't get their videos synced up with their audio. It's me, Tom, and of course, Janice. We're back. It's Mother's Day 2023. So let's just jump into that. The awkward social events. How did you handle it?
I took my mom out to a Chinese restaurant, which is like she really likes it, and we ordered roast duck, which I ate some of the skin, and then we got like beef with broccoli. I just ate the beef and not the broccoli, and then
Mm,
I got her some like garlic eggplant, like or eggplant with uh, like spicy garlic sauce,
mm.
and so I always just eat the meat, and she just takes the rest home as leftovers. But she like bit her tongue like partway into the meal and it was bleeding profusely. So that kind of halted.
What? For real?
Yeah, she bit the side of her tongue, like a chunk of her tongue out, and it was just like bleeding like crazy.
Ah,
So then we were like, okay, well, I guess we'll like pack it up and leave. So
poor
yeah,
mom.
which obviously that's like dirty carnivore, but I still like make it work. Eat a little
Hmm.
something to be social. So it's like you're not just sitting there not eating anything.
Hmm.
But she always gets her bowl of rice, and I never eat any of that. If we get any meal dishes, I don't eat any of that. So I know there's like carbs and like seed oils in the sautéing, right, or whatever. But
Sure.
whatever. What did you eat?
Well, I went down to my dad's house, and my dad and his wife, particularly, they're a little older, so they don't cook anything fancy anymore, and so they had hot dogs.
Nice.
They which were good. They bought nice ones, nice premium stuff. So I ate some hot dogs. I think I ate like 5 hot dogs.
All right.
And I did put a little shredded cheese on there. I'm not even sure. I guess it was jack cheese because it was white, but I couldn't even tell. And I did put some mustard on it
Yum.
and stuff. And they asked me to bring potato salad, so they're
That's
all.
funny. So you brought the potato salad?
I brought potato salad. I just bought it. I bought
Yeah.
a tub of potato salad. They're like, bring potato salad for 10 people, and I looked at the container. It was 80 ounces. I figure 8 ounces of potato salad per person is enough. And if they're
Nice.
including me, then that's 8 by 9. That's even better. 80 by 9. And so, but I like it. They barely made a dent in the potato salad. So,
I feel like no one ever makes a dent in potato salad. Like they always want it, but it's just like I don't know. Even before carnivore, I'm like, I never would just like wolf down a bunch of potato salad.
well, my grandmother and my mother were potato salad wizards.
Mm.
So that was a common thing on holidays and whatnot where when I was a kid. So,
I feel
ate,
like I always just pre-eat. Like, do you pre-eat when you go out for social things, or
I,
plan
pre-
to eat after?
I pre ate this morning for sure.
Yeah,
I ate steak and hot dogs before I left, not knowing we were having hot dogs when we got down there.
funny. But you still managed to eat five.
Yep. Well, I was hungry by the time we ate because I was pre-eating at like 8 or 9 in the morning, and then we didn't eat till I don't know 1 or 2.
It's a good thing you pre-ate.
Mm.
Oh, and last night, actually Friday night, we went out to shabu shabu or whatever because
Hmm.
we were going out with my brother to take my mom out, and oh, it was so good because I had never been to this place. It's called Shibuya in Milpitas, and it had I had like 6 trays of the thinly sliced ribeye, and
Mm.
then the meat was so fresh and like really thin and like really fatty, and I had some chicken thighs too. But I just like the whole time everyone's eating, it was like all you could eat. So my family was eating like all these gyoza and like these like kind of fried chicken appetizers, and just like they were just putting tons of stuff, ramen and udon and like all this like stuff in their soup. But I just kept cooking like tray after tray of the thin like ribeye. It's really fatty too, really good. And I had already eaten a whole New York steak that day, but I still put away like six trays of the thinly sliced ribeye. It was so good, like
Nice.
cooked in the broth. But yeah, I feel like my family now, they know. Like my brother's like, well, we got to go somewhere that has meat, right? But they usually just pick something like that where they know I'll be able to eat some meat.
Hmm.
And they kind of like stopped. Like initially, they would be commenting all the time. Like my dad'd be like, "You better eat some vegetables," Like they can understand no carbs, but the no vegetable thing, like my dad was constantly saying, like, "You need to eat some vegetables." Because like when they see you eating a plate full of meat, people
Hmm.
always think that's weird.
Hmm.
But like the other day, they had a potluck, or not like a potluck, but like a luncheon for admin services for professional or admin professionals day at work, and they had
Hmm.
bought all this Chinese food, which obviously is really not clean, and sometimes it's breaded. But I didn't eat with them at lunch because I feel like it's always really conspicuous if you're like eating with people and they see you like just eating all the meat and not eating the vegetables or the carbs. And so I just
Hmm.
waited until they were done, and later I went back and like kind of picked out a few pieces of meat from all the dishes. But like that morning, recently they were welcoming one of our new administrative assistants, and like they were all gathering in the conference room, and they had bought all this stuff, like just a bunch of pastries and bagels and coffee. And I just looked in there and it was like a mountain of carbs. It was like cookies and biscotti and like bagels. And I was like, they're eating that at the beginning of the day. They're just gonna like fall asleep like for the rest of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, my boss bought lunch for some reason. I don't know, like Thursday. Well, it's Wednesday, Thursday. Must have been Thursday. And one of my coworkers called me to see what I wanted because I wasn't even there yet when they ordered. They're ordering off some sandwich menu, some restaurant I'd never heard of. So I'm like, well, just give me a club sandwich. So when it came with soup, some kind of chicken soup,
Yeah.
and I just ate the like meat out of the sandwich, but it had mayo on it,
Uh-huh.
which I don't really mind.
I like
But
it.
I picked the chicken out of the soup, and sure enough, later on, I got heartburn, and I think it
Oh
was the
no,
mayo.
really? From the mayo because it's like a
I think it's
oil, right, or something.
yeah, it's the vegetable oils. I think, especially if they're hydrogenated, it tend to give me heartburn.
Oh, that stinks.
It wasn't real bad, but still happened. Let me say hi to Miss Patricia since she's here. She said hello.
Oh,
Hey,
I
hey,
didn't see that. Oh, hi.
hey, hey.
I like the
So,
the eating the guts out of a sandwich.
hmm yeah, I've got a new assistant at work, and we're crowded together in a little office together right now. And she's like, I'm gonna take the food trash out, and she picked up my containers, and she's like, they feel pretty heavy. And
Because it's all the bread.
I'm like, yeah, I'm like, because I told her I just eat meat. And then but you get that it's still a new idea to her, so she's still like, so no vegetables, no, because there
Yeah,
was French fries and of course the soup and the rest of the sandwich, all the bread and everything in there. So I didn't eat most of what what was there.
yeah. I usually sneak away, like if they're giving out like those box lunches.
Uh,
But we have an upcoming event where they're gonna have barbecue, so I'm pretty excited about it. It's gonna have like
mm,
tri-tip, or no, maybe brisket and chicken.
barbecue.
But the other day when we went out, I was pleasantly surprised because I had gone to a Sharks game with our CEO, and we were supposed to meet ahead of time at the bar and like have dinner, like not just him, some other people. And then they have like it's at the Sharks arena, and so they have like they call it the carving station, and they have like a big old like you can get a big old sandwich, and it comes with like fries and chips or something, like this huge plate of carbs. And
Mm,
I came late because I was having all these issues parking, and having my bag was too big and I couldn't fit it in the locker. And so I showed up late, but then the CEO was sitting there and he had eaten out the meat out of his, like the carving out of his sandwich
mm.
bun. And so he had this huge pile of like carbs sitting there. And I was so proud. I was like, oh, like, and he told me that he's been eating, I think he eats vegetables, but he's been eating like basically like low carb for like 20 years. And I was like, yes, good man, you know?
Yeah, well, when I got there today, my dad's wife was like, "Oh, I got the nice all beef hot dogs for Tom for me," and then Adam is like, I guess my step nephew or whatever. He's like college age,
Mm,
so and he's not he doesn't claim to be an actual carnivore, but he's got to have meat with every meal, and then he eats a little bit of other stuff. And
yeah.
he's really young; he's in his early 20s, so.
I've
And then
noticed that. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
my stepbrother or whatever, he's a little older than I am, and I was talking to him. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm on a new diet," and just asked him what he's doing. He had gone low carb, so all right, bless you.
Sorry. I just like I had
Okay.
the window open. All of a sudden I was like, I had just eaten my I don't even know. Like I feel like I just got a pepper, but I didn't put any pepper on anything. So it's
Mm.
weird. But yeah, low carb seems to be something that people can they can grasp that, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's been around long enough, and there's enough support for it that people are comfortable trying it. So.
But I like to watch like young people who are like teens because like I just sort of observe all of the like young generation in my family and I see how like when they're you know how like some little kids love meat and
Hmm.
some don't, right? And you can just sort of watch like kids either just are into it or they're not. And I've noticed that the kids like in my family who are like really into meat and have always been into meat, they're like really smart. Like by the time they're, you know, getting up in the grades, like they're always doing really well in school. They're always like smarter to me than the ones who like don't like meat. Like even if they're eating all the other stuff, I just think your brain's not going to develop as well if you're not into meat, you know, specifically
I
like
would think so. Well,
so.
let's say hi to Dad. You are. Hope you're saying your name right. I see you said hello there. So, so anyways, this we got some other little topics to cover. If you're done, I think you hit the end of your point there, right?
Yeah.
So I think we talked about a long time ago, and of course, our buddy Ray did an experiment. Do you know about Ray's experiment?
About not
Ray-
brushing his teeth, nothing, or
Yeah, Ray Nazon, Raymond
yeah.
Nazon, not Raymond Neff. But yeah, Ray didn't wear deodorant
Oh
uh
right.
or use soap or use toothpaste. I think he didn't brush his teeth, but I know he didn't use
No, he
toothpaste.
wasn't brushing his teeth, I don't think either. Yeah.
So and there's that I didn't get to share it, but there's an infamous video where Raymond has Jimmy Moore smell his armpits
Uh,
and testify that he did not have body odor.
so did he not have body odor?
According to Jimmy Moore, of course, we can't ask Jimmy Moore anymore. So,
No, you can't. But I, you know, for me, I never really had body odor. I don't think, but my oh, except for my feet. Like I didn't have like armpit odor, but like my feet used to stink a lot, like so bad. Like I'd have to throw away shoes. And now I literally
mhm.
can stick my nose right in my toes, or like I'll smell my socks because I was like, oh, I could kind of keep wearing my socks if I want. I'll smell my socks and they have like no smell, which is kind of weird, right? That's weird. But
Yeah, and I think just as far as like armpits go, it's kind of gonna vary on the person.
mhm.
And Justin used to love to point this out because send all your hate mail to Justin too, because I know somebody's gonna say I'm racist, but Asians typically don't have as many sweat glands, just like they don't have
Right.
as much body hair. So, and of course that's not like all Asians. It kind of depends on what region you're from,
Yeah.
what genes you have. So, but anyways, so I still wear deodorant. I don't think I could get away without it at all, but I definitely less body odor, and of course breath is
Oh yeah,
probably the
breath.
most
Yeah,
noticeable.
that's
Now I do brush my teeth and I floss all the time. I don't know how Ray couldn't brush and floss because I always get meat stuck in my teeth.
me too. I mean, in one spot between two molars, I always have meat there, you know. But less, I mean, certainly no buildup on the teeth, right? Because you're not getting like like eating carbs, which felt
Yeah,
like.
I don't get that plaque like I used to, right? There, that stuff growing. So I don't know. I know I've talked this to death with Justin. He likes to laugh, but like I was looking up um, stuff about basically Candida, Streptococcus, and
Oh,
Staphylococcus, right?
yep.
And so Candida, which is a fungus, which is people get um, Candida infections in their body, but more noticeably or more frequently on their skin. Because the immune system has a harder time fighting stuff out on the skin than it does internally. So generally, if you've got severe internal um, fungal infections, that's a sign your immune system's got a serious issue.
Hmm.
But a little less so with the skin, especially since Candida and other funguses are similar. The same thing that causes like athlete's foot, jock itch, ringworm, stuff like that. They're all similar family of funguses, and you can pick them up pretty easy. You know, especially wet environments or gyms, boats,
Yeah,
um,
I had all
spas.
that.
Yeah. So it's not that uncommon. You get a little something on your skin. It's not too alarming, but feet in particular, because you're get moisture trapped in your shoes or whatever. It's real easy for stuff like that to persist. But it does seem like if you're not eating carbohydrates or starches, then the candida and particularly in your mouth, the candida and streptococcus, which causes strep throat, they work together to break down carbohydrates.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's no surprise that people notice their breath gets better. And of course, I asked my dentist too because I read this, and then he confirmed it that Staphylococcus is the one that causes cavities or dental caries.
Huh.
So when it's really active, it's the thing eating the enamel on your teeth.
Interesting.
And I don't think anybody, I don't know anybody who isn't aware that like eating sugar messes up your teeth,
I know. Oh,
right? Doesn't everybody know that? Doesn't every dentist, say, hey, don't eat too much candy. It's
yeah.
bad for your
And
teeth.
also just like your gum health. But yeah, I used to have, I think I had like major yeast overgrowth when I was a vegetarian, just eating all those carbs. I had fungus all over my body and like everything, like in my mouth, and I get yeast infections and UTIs, and
Hmm.
my feet would smell, and I had athlete's foot and all those like ringworm and all that stuff.
Hmm.
It's just like I do think you eventually you kind of starve all that, and you don't, you know. And then I swear these last few months, everyone at work was sick, like just rounds and rounds of everything, like COVID and like
Mm.
all of the different ones that everyone was getting sick with. And I mean, I was in this very contained area where we had multiple COVID outbreaks and other stuff, and I didn't get any of it,
Hmm.
which is not good. I think we're kind of through that whole cycle. But it was
Mm.
like months and months of everyone like getting re-sick with some new thing, you know? And I don't know why. I didn't. And I also wonder because you know how I always talk about Dr. Chafee now, but he was saying about going like 100% carnivore matters, like from going from 90, like say 90 to 95% to going like 100%. And I think it does seem like it matters, you know? Like, do you think it matters?
I think it probably does. I haven't really been able to like, oh, hi, Margie. I haven't really been able to like personally confirm that. Like I haven't gotten to a point where like I noticed the difference.
Mhm.
But I haven't really done an earnest experiment. But I know Bart's said that. I know a number of other, um, with sort of carnivore personalities have said that that last little 5% can make a huge difference.
Hmm.
So
Well, I guess I wouldn't say like I wasn't like 100% because I would still have like little things like a little ketchup on my In and Out burger or whatever. But just
mhm.
like not having, because there was a period where I would have like like little things like I would eat like a little stevia sweetened chocolate, or
Hmm.
just like, because I was always thinking, oh well, if you're keeping your carbs down to, like, they say like below 25 grams a day,
Hmm.
I would think, I would be like, well, I'm still fine. But then like just taking out that stuff, and I mean, I'm not like, there are still like little bits of carbs in different things, right? Even if you're not really eating anything specifically like a cheat. Like for a long time on carnivore, I used to eat those like for just a little sweet at night. I would have one of those like Ferrero Rocher balls. You know how they sell those little hazelnut chocolate balls
Sure, sure.
at Costco? So I would eat like one at night, and I'd be like, oh, I can get away with this. But I swear, speaking of like fungus, I have one toe that like I have easily. I mean, I have some sort of fungus on that toe, and
Hmm.
like if I just even eat a little bit of carb, like it'll
Hmm.
start to like itch, like just this one
Really?
toe. Yeah, like I can tell, like if I've had any kind of carbs in my diet, it'll like suddenly like wake up, like it starts to itch, which is really weird. Like that's my little like gauge of whether I've been good or not.
Interesting. Well, I mean, it's kind of handy, right?
Yeah,
You know when you cross the line.
yeah. But I hate it because I always feel like very disappointed in myself. I'm like, see, you shouldn't have eaten like whatever those, like that little bit of extra, and then now all of a sudden
Mm,
my toes itching. It's like the canary in the coal mine, but
right.
it's a toe.
Yeah, and the thing with the Staphylococcus hominis in particular grows on human skin, and it causes the most odor.
Mm.
And of course, it also causes staph infections.
Mm.
And of course, it also thrives on sugar. So,
Wow.
anyways, for all the lab nerds out there who want to know, Candida the fungus, Streptococcus, and Staphylococcus all seem to diminish, or at least are greatly reduced when people don't eat carbohydrates, and it reduces cavities in the mouth, fungal infections, and body odor. So,
Those are pretty good things to have, and
yeah.
bad breath, right?
Yeah.
They're pretty good things to not have to deal with. I
Hmm.
feel bad because my mom's she always gets staph infections. Like she'll get it like on her nose or whatever.
Really?
And I tell her, I'm like, don't eat carbs. And it's like,
Hmm.
she cut out a lot of sugar, and I think that's been good for her, but she'll still eat like rice, and she'll have like oatmeal, and like she'll eat like tortilla chips and stuff like that. And I'm always just like, don't eat any of that. It's just like, and I think as we get older, it's harder to keep that kind of stuff in check, because your skin starts to break down, and
Well, yeah, and I think people tolerate different amounts of things, and I could liken that to like you were complaining about having a little bit of fungus on your toe. I mean, I'm very susceptible to that because, I have really unusually shaped large feet, and I never could find shoes that fit.
yeah,
And it caused all kinds of problems, including, you know, com- repeatedly injuring my feet just from wearing shoes and then
yeah.
getting infections. Yeah. And that eventually we figured out is what caused my psoriasis was my body kind of overreacts to these tiny little
Oh wow.
infections. Yeah, and so when it kicks out all those antibodies to fight the infection, those antibodies also damage some of the skin cells, which causes the overgrowth and creates the lesions.
Interesting.
And antibodies circulate for a long time. So even if you get the infection under control or whatever, those antibodies are still circulating around. And they're basically a molecule that attaches to a presumed infectious material, right, or a vector of some sort, right? And but if they happen to fit, mechanically up against another tissue in the body, they will attach to it. You know,
Oh,
so
weird.
yeah, and that's the cause of a lot of autoimmune diseases. The immune system's kicking out things like antibodies or whatever, and they're killing invaders, but they're also attacking human tissue.
Oh, that makes sense. I used to. every night after dinner, I would have like a horrible rash. Like I would get hives all over my body, and I would
Mm,
just like scratch
hmm.
every single night. And I never thought that was weird to have hives every day after dinner. And like
Yeah,
I
so
love that
that's
about
like a
carnivore. I never get that anymore. Never itch. Like not where I'm just like a huge reaction like that.
that's a very fast sort of immune system reaction, right? It's probably histamines, reacting to something you ate, histamine type reaction.
Yeah. Mr. Tick is saying hydrogen peroxide. Is that for fungus? 'Cause
Possibly.
I was trying to soak my toe in I read that you could do apple cider vinegar with baking soda. So is it baking soda or baking powder? I always forget. What's the one you put in the fridge? Baking soda, right? The one that
Yeah,
froths.
which is interesting because they would neutralize each other, right?
Yeah, like why do I don't know, maybe that's not the right thing to do. But maybe I
I
should try hydrogen peroxide.
my great suspicion is that there's a team of people that just infiltrate every sort of health and remedy group and promote apple cider vinegar. They are
just like
geniuses.
just like how that comedian who says how cranberry showed up and everything all of a sudden like
Right?
it's like who came up with that idea? But yeah, apple cider vinegar, can it really be as miraculous as everybody says it is?
Well, it's acidic, so I suppose if you got low stomach acid and you're taking that, it might help. And if maybe it works as a disinfectant if it's strong enough acid. I'm not
Mhm.
sure, but it seems like once you mix it with baking soda, the baking soda becomes more acidic and the vinegar becomes less acidic. So I
Yeah,
don't know.
what they're telling me to do that for.
It sounds like more like a kindergarten science experiment for a volcano.
Like
Or
a
something.
volcano.
Yeah.
I've been thinking lately that remember how we were talking last time? Just I think I'm feeling better and better as I go along in carnivore. Like I'm almost to 4 years, and like lately, I just feel like even better.
Mm,
And I'm just like so excited about eating and everything.
mm,
Like one day this weekend, I think it was Saturday, I didn't have time to eat because I was kind of busy,
mm,
and I went to yoga at noon. So I had my buttered coffee. I had actually 2 servings of buttered coffee. I went to yoga
mm,
at noon and I hadn't eaten anything. And it was like a really hard class. It was like the Bikram, like heated class. And then it was a nice day, so I stayed out at the pool. And then I ended up going shopping and I didn't eat that day until like 5 o'clock.
mm,
I normally don't fast. I mean, I don't really like fasting. I mean, I usually skip breakfast or whatever, but I don't like I know everyone's all into it, but I don't really like it. But I felt like really good. I came home and ate like a whole, over a pound of ground beef. But I've just been feeling better and better, and I'm trying to figure out why. Like I've
mm,
been eating more like the Wagyu ground beef because I've been eating that like ground beef chili a bunch, and then
mm.
that has a lot of fat, right? Because the fat is in. I don't drain the fat when I cook it as the chili,
Right.
but then and I'm eating quite a bit of like I switched back to just choice New York steak.
Mm,
And then so I've basically been eating beef, bacon, butter, and eggs. But I'm thinking, why do I feel like I'm feeling like better and better, like physically? Like energy's good, sleep is getting better, and I just feel like I'm kind of in the zone. So I don't know whether it's a combination of the foods or if it's like just being carnivore for longer or if it's just like lifestyle and like not being as stressed and starting to do yoga again. But I wonder, like, I keep thinking, like, as we keep going longer and longer, can we just feel better and better? But some of these long-term carnivores, they seem like they're, I don't know. Do you think they're stable or because I know they like tinker with things like adding more fat and this and that, but do you think your body, like, as it's getting rebuilt over years, is just getting better? You know?
I do for sure. I mean, there's little things like hydrogenated vegetable oils kind of build up in our tissues because it winds up replacing some of the material that's supposed to be in the cell wall, but it doesn't work well for the cell wall because it doesn't allow the right things to pass through because it's a foreign material.
Mm-hmm.
And so as those cells get replaced and they're replaced with, those new cells don't have any of the hydrogenated vegetable oil in them, they're probably going to function better. And then I think we talked about before, like, the cells in the body live for different periods of time.
Mhm.
Some cells like live for a day, some live for 6 or 7 years, right? So all those are being replaced
Mhm.
gradually, right? So things just become more efficient. And then, from a psychological standpoint, as we get less stressed and, feel better, then the consequences of that stress are tapering off as well, right? Because
Mhm.
stress takes a toll. It alters our hormone profile, it disrupts our sleep, you know, and I think the longer we feel better, just the better we do, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Because there's
Yeah.
always an adaptation to things like stress. And let's say you don't feel good and you're anxious or you're depressed or whatever, long term, your body's adapting to that stressful or depressive um, situation, right?
Right.
And, that's probably undoing itself little by little, right?
Right. Yeah. That makes sense. So it starts compounding in a better for the better.
Yeah, maybe less cortisol, a little more dopamine, you know.
Is that Mr. Tick or Mr. TLC? My vision. I can't see that was Mr. TLC.
Mr.
Mr.
TLC
TLC is saying he
658.
needs hydrogen peroxide. I'm gonna try that because I really want to like nuke this my one toe because
Sure.
but that like I kept thinking, oh well, carnivore if you just like starve it all, it'll just go away. But I guess it's probably pretty hard to like completely, like you
Well,
said, in a
well, you're
host.
never gonna have no blood sugar, right?
Yeah,
So, I mean, it's pumped through your body at some level. So, if the conditions are just right, then, little stuff like that might persist.
yeah. Well, I was listening to Doctor Kiltz. Is that his name? The
I
baby
think
guy.
so. Uh-huh.
And he was saying how it was kind of theory was pretty interesting. He was saying we definitely need to like we should be eating like way more fat and less protein. And then he said like fasting because like you're giving your digestion a rest. Like he was saying every time you eat, no matter what you eat, you're just sort of like wearing down the digestive tract. And he was saying like the longer you can kind of keep it just at rest and like stressing it less, the better. What do you think about
I've heard people say similar things.
that?
Um, I don't know that I necessarily subscribe to it. I mean, it seems like it's very helpful to give your digestive tract a rest when things aren't right, but it seems like when everything, your digestive tract is functioning properly, then I can't really see the incentive. It doesn't seem like it wears out as long as it's running right?
Right, it's not all broken, like shredded by kale or something, right? Or
Mhm.
like seeds where you get diverticulitis. But he was also saying that I don't know. He's talking about us being like the apex predator, so that like if an animal was killed, then like the humans would go and eat like the fatty parts and the organs, and then leave
Mhm.
all the little like lean parts for like the other animals. So he was making the argument like that we should be eating like way more fat, and we don't actually need that much protein. Like to, I don't know.
I
What do you
Yeah,
think?
I mean, I kind of disagree with that in general. It's kind of like people seem to like pick little snippets of time where they describe how certain people hunted in a certain place.
Mhm.
But I'm pretty sure that we spent a long time evolving eating the megafauna, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, things like mammoths were fatty.
Mhm.
And probably prior to that, we did eat leftovers that other predators killed. You
Mhm.
know, we were probably scavengers. And yeah, if we were eating the brain out of the skull, it's fatty. If we're eating the marrow out of the bones, it's fatty.
Mhm.
But wolves and lions and stuff like that, they eat the guts first. And they
Mhm.
often leave behind, the legs and stuff like that, which is usually the lean stuff.
Right.
right? And even though a mammoth that could have like 3 or 4 inch thick fat layer on the outside to keep it warm,
Yeah.
there's a lot of muscle in that animal. And I'm a little skeptical that we would start eating our way into a mammoth and bypass all that outer animal just to go in and eat the organs. And then organs like liver, not fatty.
Well, no, he was saying you would eat the fatty meat and the organs,
Mm.
but
Which we may have.
not like the leaner tissue, like it was, that they would focus. He was saying we would focus on the fatty part first, which I
Because
was like,
when you look at the fossils that remain, or the bones that remain that were preyed upon, you clearly see tool marks on the long bones where you'd be cutting off the muscle.
oh.
Those are actually the most common.
Plus, it
So
probably would taste better, right?
what's that?
Probably the muscle meat or the meat would probably taste better, right?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I don't care for liver, but the rest of the organ meats I like.
Yeah.
But you don't see that much of it, right?
Mhm.
So and there's only so much, like liver or whatever in an animal compared to the rest of it. It's usually not. I mean, a cow liver is pretty big, it's pounds, but compared to 1,000 pound animal, it's not that big, you know, or 600 pound animal, whatever. And hi, Christina. Didn't mean to ignore you. So I don't know, and I think you certainly could eat too much protein, and clearly protein is kind of not the most ideal fuel. But I think what your fuel requirement is met by the fat, then you should have a requisite amount of protein to rebuild your tissues, right? They're
Right.
all those cells that are being replaced.
I mean, you can't build your body from fat, right? Like just straight fat.
No, not really. It's primarily fuel, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I guess it depends on how big you are. And some of the people in the past were huge. The Cro-Magnon, which they now know is identical to um, genetically identical to modern humans, fully
Mm.
modern humans. A lot of them were quite large. They had much larger brains, significantly larger volume. And some of the best examples we have of those people were actual mammoth hunters. That's all they did. That was
Huh.
their lifestyle. So they were taller, stronger, and had larger brains. And of course, we know that the more agricultural products we ate, the smaller our brains got, and the shorter we got. So
Yeah, I just don't see how people can like argue with that. Like people who say, like I was just debating with someone this week because I was saying like, you know, we're definitely carnivores because there's a couple like vegan vegetarian people at work that are just like cuckoo cover cocoa puffs, like they're just so unstable and just like where I'm like I was just joking saying we just need to force feed them like a fatty ribeye, calm down. And then every single time I like debate with somebody about like whether or not we should be eating like vegetables and grains, they always talk about our teeth and like, oh, well, we wouldn't have teeth that look like our teeth would look like a lion's or. And I'm like, I don't know, this whole teeth argument about like
right.
that's the proof, that we're meant to be eating all this other stuff. And I'm like, but are we though? I mean, yeah, maybe we can eat plants, but it's like all this made up. That's the part I can't get. Why do people not understand? Like, look at all this made up, these manufactured products. Like, that's not what our teeth were designed to be eating, even if we were supposed to be eating plants.
Yeah, and there's some catchy graphics going around showing teeth and trying to pass off humans as not meat eaters,
Mm.
but they avoid things like if you're going to show a lion's teeth or a wolf's teeth, you ought to show a gorilla's teeth too, because they have these vicious looking
Oh, yeah.
canines, and they specialize in eating twigs and leaves.
Right.
So, it doesn't hold water. And clearly, the archaeological evidence shows that we have been eating, prodigious amounts of meat for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Whereas, of course, the oldest grain cultivation probably goes back maybe about 10,000 years,
Uh-huh.
whereas we probably have been eating a largely meat diet for something more like a million years,
Wow.
maybe more.
Oh, wow.
So, and the thing is, we evolved with tools, and if you could just cut up your meat, you don't have to tear it apart with your teeth, right?
Right, right, right. That's
We've
true.
all had some meat where you didn't even need a utensil because some parts of the animal are really tender.
That's true.
You
What?
don't really need any. You don't need a knife or a fork to eat bone marrow either, right?
That's true. And yeah, it just cracks me up that people argue. And then I think the fact that people are willing to eat like these Beyond Burgers and all this crap, it's like, well, you think we evolved to be eating that? Like, you got to be kidding me, you know? I've been like having all these discussions with people at work, and I keep telling them, I'm like, you think about meat, like beef, right? You just get this
Mhm.
primal, like, you tell people about, they think about prime rib or something, and they just like start to like salivate, you know? And so all these people keep coming up to me and telling me, like, oh, I thought about you. I had a steak, or I had prime rib. They keep telling me, like, every time they eat meat, they're basically reporting out that, like, oh, I thought of you because I ate this meat. And I'm like, yeah, but did you eat all the other stuff? Or like someone will text me a picture and say, I had a burger for lunch, with bacon on
Nice.
it, right? But then it's got like this huge bun on it. And I'm like, you can't eat both, Like you can't eat. And yes, you are still going to feel better, right? With the beef and
Yeah.
carb, you're still going to feel better than if you just ate like, like a salmon burger or some kind of like vegetable sandwich, right? But you
Right.
but you shouldn't be eating the bun. So whenever they're like bragging to me about how they had a steak, I'll be like, well, what did you eat with the steak? Oh well, I had potatoes and whatever. And like
Yeah.
whenever they tell me, they text me a picture of their burger, I'm like, you should have not eaten it with the bun. But I do notice, like, even with these people who, like my coworker, she had like a burger with bacon on it for lunch. And I said, how
Uh-huh.
do you feel? And she's like, oh, I do feel better. Because
Mhm.
normally she eats some kind of like, like a sandwich and like a cut up apple every day. Right. And she's always
Mhm.
bragging. And then like I said, don't you feel pretty good after eating the beef? And she's like, and the bacon, she's like, I do feel good. So it's like that's the part I just don't get is like why do people know that they feel better after eating a steak or a burger, but they can't put it together that they would feel even better if they just ate that without the carbs, you know?
I think those habits just die hard.
But it's just this mental block.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how our whole lives have been indoctrinated and told that plants are good for us. Drink your orange juice, eat your spinach.
The
The
oatmeal
red meat's bad for you. Have some oatmeal.
and bananas. I am getting
You know.
so annoyed. I'm always seeing bananas, and I'm like, look at what that banana is. It's like literally just a bar of sugar.
Well, and they don't know that bananas are basically man-made, right? Tomatoes are man-made. Lettuce that we use man-made. The grain that they make the bread out of is man-made. They think it's all natural. It comes from the earth and it's good for you. And it's all man-made. Most of it's, industrial crops too, So we didn't evolve. And when I tell people, it's like, I'm like, well, you know, I think I was talking to my sister and she said something about some wild cherries in Iowa where she lives. And I'm like, well, who evolved there while those cherries were there? And she's like, what? I'm like, well, what human beings were there to eat that? How long can you live on them? You know, how sustaining are they? And she's like, well, I don't know. And then I'm like, where were they doing during the ice age?
Wow.
Because the Midwest was under 2 miles of ice. There's no damn cherry trees to eat. So you
When I
think about that.
yeah, and that's like the other thing about the whole plant thing is I was watching Dr. Chafee's presentation on plants are trying to kill you from his
Mhm.
low carb down under presentation, and he was just going through like he's like Brussels sprouts have like 150 like toxins, and all
Mhm.
these things, and he was saying how all these they point to like big animals like panda bears and like these vegetarian like animals. And he's like, but if you think about it, most plants will kill most animals, right? And then like
Mhm.
there's like each large animal that's able to tolerate plants is only eating like one like ultra specific thing, and
For
everything else will kill
specialized.
them.
Mhm.
Which I think that's kind of like, if you think about it that way, it's like, yeah, the vast majority, like you're saying, most stuff is man made or it was like altered to be less poisonous. But like if you just were out in the wild and there's just all these plants all over the earth, you would pretty much not be able to eat like almost any of it without dying, right? Or getting
Mhm.
sick.
Yeah, 99% of all plants on the earth are overtly toxic to human beings.
Wow. 99%.
Mhm. And then, all wild potatoes are toxic to human beings.
It's so
So,
funny because everyone says potatoes are like your staple food.
right. And if you try to live on corn, unless you can know how to process it, you'll get pellagra pretty quick.
What's that?
That's a disease, a disease of malnourishment. You get like it happened here in the past when, particularly like when they were for poor people or slaves or whatever, tried to live on corn because, corn is another thing that's hard to digest, like nuts.
Yeah.
So even some of the nutrients that are in there, they're just not bioavailable. So people wind up being malnourished. And it was a long debate whether pellagra was an infectious disease or a disease of nutrition, and this is back what in the 1800s, and they figured out it's a disease of malnutrition.
Interesting. It really annoys me too that people say that like you just were talking about, like just because something has certain nutrients in it doesn't mean you actually can use them, right?
Hmm. And of course, modern corn looks nothing like the corn that that nature created. Tastes nothing like the corn that nature created, and we didn't evolve to eat it. So it's
I
kind of a
wish
moot
I
point.
wish people would show more of that, like what like the original like fruits and like things like that look like.
Well, if I can get somebody to pay attention long enough and I look it up and I show them what a carrot used to look like or what corn used to look like or banana or tomato or any of that stuff. And of course, broccoli and kale, those are all nothing like that existed in nature. Those were all sort of um, hybridized from the mustard plant,
But
right?
why did they even do it? It's like, why did they even want it? Like who even
Well,
decided to hybridize it? Like just for survival, or they wanted to just be able to sell it? Like why did they even make these things to begin with?
kale was a crop that was invented for animals,
Oh,
and they didn't do well on it, and they're like, well, let's sell it to people.
so
Broccoli, I don't remember the story behind.
that is so strange. That we're eating a lot of things. Well, we're not, but people are eating a lot of things that they shouldn't be eating.
Yeah, and they've been just everybody's been told, it's an untruth that's frequently repeated. Oh, it's good for you. It's good for you. It's good for you. It's good for you. Until you're talked into eating it, and then you think it's a good thing, you learn to like it, and then it's deeply embedded in us that it's good for us. And we never hear about the negative sides. We never hear about the anti-nutrients and the phytic acid, and everybody's brainwashed into thinking the fiber is good for you. And nobody suggests that perhaps fiber is not good for you. It's just an irritant.
I know today my mom was like wolfing down her broccoli, and I was just like, I'm so happy that I never have to eat broccoli again.
Try and eat broccoli just the way it is too,
Ugh, it's
without
so
sauce or
disgusting.
cooking it
Well,
or
yeah, it's absolutely
horrible.
disgusting. I used to force myself because I thought it was good for me to just eat the raw broccoli, and it is like it's so bitter and so foul, and it smells like, I mean, talk about smelly. Broccoli smells like stinky feet.
Yeah, it's got those sulforaphanes and stuff in it, so it's got that
Right.
that sulfurous funk to it.
Funk. That's
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, imagine willingly eating that if meat was available.
oh
There's
my god,
there's no
no.
way.
What about like, do we really need seafood? Because I've just not really. I tried to buy some scallops because I was thinking, oh, maybe I need some iodine or whatever. But it's like, if you lived inland, you wouldn't get any seafood, and would you need it for anything?
I would
I
say
know you
that
love your
you
shrimp, but
you might wonder if you have some sort of deficiency, and then the same time we didn't grow up eating the ideal diet, so who knows what sort of deficiency we come to this with. I don't know. And there's clearly people that evolved along the water, and clearly it seems like some people did just fine inland where there was no aquatic creatures, except maybe some freshwater fish.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I just eat seafood that I like I said, I love eating shrimp.
Yeah.
When I can get good oysters, I'll eat oysters. If I can eat some bluefin, I'll eat some bluefin or octopus or whatever I like, just because I like it. I never really felt. I mean, I guess it all comes down to whether you have some reason to believe you have any sort of deficiency.
Well, I was starting to think I should eat some seafood just for like iodine or zinc or whatever, but I mean, I ate some. I'm starting to think also just like instinct more because I made some scallops and I was like, they were okay, but I didn't feel like I didn't. I mean, I would have rather been eating like a steak, you know. Like I always feel like now when I push out like beef or whatever, then I'm always like not as happy, you know.
Mm,
I wish we could do with an experiment where we take some like really unhealthy people and we just sort of like lock them in like a meditation center and then force feed them like just beef only just to prove that they will like, transform in a really positive way.
hmm
Because you think about all these little retreat centers, they always serve like that's a real deterrent right now because I'm starting to do yoga and meditate again, and I want to go do something like go do some sort of retreat. But I know it's going to be all vegetarian, and I'm like, I'm not going to go because I'm going to be like miserable. I won't have any good food, and then I'm going to be paying a high premium to just eat some sort of like plant slop that they're going to give me, And it's just like maybe we should open like a carnivore retreat center.
I was gonna say that's your calling. You
Yeah,
need to run
right?
a carnivore yoga retreat or something.
Yes, exactly. Where you do mindfulness. Because I'm telling you, now that I'm doing yoga as a carnivore, I'm feeling like really, really good.
Hmm
And I was at the little gathering. They had a little like birthday party at the club where I'm going, the fitness, the gym. And
hmm
the owner was out there, like her son was turning 1, and I was like just kind of sitting out there. And then
hmm
I had my confident carnivore hat on. And then like this lady sits down and she starts talking about like her daughters are vegan and oh the owners of the gym are going to open up this new like health restaurant because there aren't very many good like vegan vegetarian restaurants in this area like there are in LA, and she was like raving about all of the vegan scene in LA. And I
Wow.
was like I just kind of like I had already taken my hat off but I kind of like just like tucked it away because I feel like it's just such a thing where especially in the yoga community, like people are just really, really into thinking that like vegetarianism is the thing. And
hmm
I just want to be like, you're wrong. I thought
hmm
that for 10 years. I mean, I was totally drinking the Kool Aid on that for 10 years. And
hmm
then I'm like, no. Like, I want to just tell people, like, you're wrong because you could feel like you could like be your practice could be so much stronger and you could just feel like the carnivore zen you barely even have to meditate or do any of that stuff because you already feel that way most of the time,
mm
as compared to the baseline of being like a totally like brain fogged out like ADHD, you know moody unstable vegetarian.
hmm
They're doing so much to try to attain that just through like kind of the will of being mindful and doing all these practices of the breath, and it's like you just need a ribeye, you're gonna feel pretty good. You're not even gonna hardly need that meditation to calm down.
hmm
So I do think that's like a thing I would like. I mean, I know there's like that carnivore yogi girl or whatever. I never really followed her stuff, but I
Sarah
feel
Kleiner.
yeah, I mean, I recall seeing that, thinking like, oh, that's cool, like bringing yoga and carnivore together. But I feel
Mm.
like it needs to be. I was kind of pleased because my teacher, my instructor's name, his name is also Thomas, and I thought, oh God, when they started going into that vegetarian hole about like we were talking about restaurants, and then he's like, oh, well, like, we were talking about good restaurants, like, well, I had a burger, and he started talking about like meat, and I was like, oh, thank
Thank
God.
God.
But he's like totally like lucid and like super like I mean he seems like a meat eater. So I was so pleased because I was like, oh, he's not one of these like airy fairy like yoga teachers, like some of them. But anyway, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what that my contribution is going to be, but I feel like I want to do something that helps people to have like sort of like the gifts of carnivore,
Hmm.
the gifts of yoga and like mindfulness. But I don't know how that pairs up. Like just like you're doing your autistic carnivores, it's like you're making a difference in a specific area.
Trying to. I should probably work a little harder on that.
Yeah, meet Kim. Sorry, Raven. What do you mean work a little harder? I think Dr. Baker's been mentioning you a bunch.
Yeah, I want to do some more videos where to talk about you know, uh, autism more, and try and get some more people on, some specialists and stuff like that to talk about autism, and hopefully, find some more people with, helping. I don't want to talk too publicly about it, but I've got a really close friend, and um, his he's got two autistic boys, and the oldest one has really bad seizures,
Mm,
and they've tried to get him into ketosis and stuff like that. He's like 16 years old now, and it's like it's so hard to change the kid's diet. He's a 16-year-old. He's not completely nonverbal, but he doesn't speak much. He
mm.
has really hard time communicating, you know. And I mean, the last seizure lasted for over 2 hours.
Oh,
Yeah. So, and my friend's well aware that, the possibility that, a state of ketosis or, a better diet might really help, but it's very, very difficult to
like enforce it.
get him to change his diet. Yeah, it's really, they've tried multiple times. And I mean, the kid would literally, when he was younger, he would literally run around school and like steal the teacher's coffee and stuff if it had sugar in it.
Whoa,
Yeah, so
that's pretty serious.
yeah, so I don't know, maybe he'll try again, but and he's totally open to it. Um, but it's a logistical nightmare, trying to get somebody in that shape, to change. So
Maybe you could do more with Jules on that stuff. It seems like she's doing pretty well.
yeah, it was funny because Joe was telling me, dude, you need to get this person on, that person on, then maybe have like a autism summit and get Sean on, and
That'd
some
be
of these other
cool.
specialists. And then Jules came to you with a very similar idea like a week later.
Oh my gosh, you should do it. I saw Dr. Chafee interviewed that lady who found like one of the founders of Paleo Medicina or whatever it's called.
Oh yeah,
And I
was
mean,
it Sophia Clemens maybe?
I think so. And I mean, it was
Yeah.
kind of like she was talking so softly and she had an accent, but I like strained to listen to the whole thing because it was
Hmm.
so amazing, like all of their results.
Yeah, yeah.
You should do that. You should do like a summit or whatever.
Yeah, I could, I consulted with Paleo Medicina, so I spoke to Sophia a
Oh,
couple times. Yeah, so
that's cool.
and then a couple other people there, that speak English. So yeah, I don't know. I could eventually reach out. They seem they're people from Eastern Europe have a little bit different attitude about things, and it almost seemed like they kind of shied away from somebody who was a YouTuber,
Oh, interesting.
because I don't know, wasn't necessarily something that Sophia said, but somebody else there said, was like, oh, you're doing this just to be famous or something, like that. I was like, what? So
Oh, interesting.
because once I did it, then all kinds of people were asking me about it. What was it like, did it work? What did he do? And I did my best to just refer people to Paleo Medicina, which I think has kind of rebranded itself.
But that
But
would be so good to get like the word out more,
mhm,
because I mean, just think about so many people have like autism now, like you hear about it like so incredibly frequently,
mhm,
somebody in every family has someone on the spectrum.
hmm.
But like you say, it is hard to control, like especially a kid's diet.
Well, and it depends because that one interview Sean did, their son, he was able to communicate that he wanted to keep trying to um, uh, have a cleaner and cleaner carnivore diet because it was clearly working for him.
Oh wow.
And he was kind of ratcheting up and getting eating cleaner and cleaner meat. Like I was saying today, I ate a whole bunch of hot dogs because it was Mother's Day, right? So and that may not be clean enough for some people.
Right.
Of course, I think for somebody like me, it happens once in a while. I don't really notice any difference. And of course, I've been eating almost entirely meat for over 5 years now.
Wow, over five
Yeah,
years. Well,
so maybe I tolerate it, and I suspect that everybody kind of tolerates different things for different reasons. A lot of it probably has to do with what we ate in the past or what sort of problems we developed on the wrong diet or whatever else we bring to the table. I mean, some foods clearly seem to be more associated with depression or anxiety, versus somebody who's got diverticulosis or something like that, right? So there may be some variation there, and it's not really clear who needs to go 100% carnivore, just meat and water. Maybe, those are just people who aren't hitting their goals or they have some sort of chronic condition that isn't quite resolved and they need to do that for a while. It's hard to say, but it's worth a shot. It's not really once you're carnivore, if you just kind of cut out, I don't know, cheese and butter or chicken or something, and you're just going to go all beef and water, it's not that much of a stretch, right?
right, exactly. Well, I just keep thinking like about different people at different ages, and like I feel like you see people like my mom. My mom is like, she's in her 70s, and she's like really thin. She's always been. She's like really underweight now, and she's just eaten like throughout her whole life. She never worried about gaining weight or whatever, but she would just eat like whatever.
Hmm.
And I'm like telling her now she's having all these digestive problems and just like a bunch of things. And I'm like, Mom, you got to wait for like over 70 years of just eating whatever you wanted. And I'm like,
Hmm.
it's it's kind of like finally catching up with you in terms of like, I keep telling her if you just eat like, eggs and chicken and beef, like those things you will be able to process. You will be able to like, put on some weight. You'll be able to have a better mental state and all this. And I keep seeing people at different ages now, like some people are in their 20s, some people are in their 40s, where things just start to break down. They're suddenly having all these skin problems or they're having, arthritis or like their digestion finally just said like I can't do this anymore. And I
Hmm.
and then they never go like, oh well, maybe that's because of what I'm eating. I shouldn't be eating any of this stuff, right? They just keep going and thinking like, oh well, what's this mystery thing I have on my skin now? What's this?
Well, if you want to see the pinnacle of that, of just accepting poor health as normal, my dad lives in this giant retirement community, gated community, right?
Mhm,
So everybody there has to be either 55 and older or disabled, right?
mhm.
So it's mostly a lot of older folk, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's got a bad knee. Everybody's had moles cut off. Everybody's got on medication, and they all think it's normal. All of this is completely normalized. They
Right.
live in this giant community with people that have the same issues. So why would your diet really have much to do with it? And of course, when you talk to people, most people will tell you bluntly, "Oh, I eat really well," or "I haven't been so good about it," and they all have a different idea of what eating right is.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just bananas to me. And then I cannot stand when people say, every time I'm talking to them about carnivore or whatever, or even just like low carb or anything, they go, "Oh, well, that's great that that worked for you." And they go, "But everybody's different." They always say that, but everybody's
Yeah, everybody's
different. We
different.
all have different, dietary needs, and and I'm like, "But do we?" Right? Because every time you listen to all these like carnivore doctors, they're like, "No, there's only like one diet that we should all be eating, and it's not even a
Hmm.
diet. It's just the only thing that we can actually eat, like we're meant to eat." But I mean, it's all this stuff is really, I know I'm so agitated tonight, but a lot of it is like really starting to bug me because like you listen to so many people and you just hear them just like spewing out just like ignorant thing after ignorant thing, right? Where you're just like either totally they've been just completely brainwashed, or they're like you're saying everything that they accept is normal, right? Like people
Hmm.
getting like dialysis. I'm like, well, what'd you do if there was no center to give you dialysis? Like
Hmm.
what are you thinking? Or all these pills, right? Everybody's just like, oh, well, just take a statin, or oh, I got to take something to lower my blood pressure. And it's like, what? Like, what? It just doesn't make sense to me that you should feel like you you should have to medicate yourself after you've chosen to eat all of these ridiculous things that are so obviously unnatural.
Right.
But anyway, I don't know why I'm all fired up about it today. But I feel like it's because I've been just taking so much like people and they're like they give me their little like condescending remarks about my diet, like acting like I'm a freak.
Hmm.
And they're like, "Oh well, I'm so glad that works for you." Or, "Oh,
Well,
you look
I
good."
I
I'm
know
like,
people, and they literally ask me, "How do you get away with it?" And I'm like, "Get away with what? Just eating meat all the time." You know,
exactly, because
I'm
most people
like,
actually would want to eat me all the
I'm
time.
not getting away with anything. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm
Yeah.
doing what we evolved to do. We evolved the way we did because we ate meat, and we eat meat because we evolved eating meat. It's just that's what we're biologically engineered to do.
One like the I think one of the biggest things people have trouble with even more than meat is butter. I mean, my God, when I tell people
Mhm.
I eat like, 2 tablespoons of butter a day, they look at me like, oh, like you're gonna drop dead
Very.
like on the spot.
Yeah.
But I have so much energy, like every single day. I have so much energy and I'm like literally
Mhm.
running circles around people and everyone looks like they're like half dead to all the way dead.
Mhm.
Like every meeting and everywhere I look, I walk around through the halls and everyone's just like dragging along and they're always like waiting because my coworker has like a Nespresso machine at her desk and they're literally like lining up to come and have like not just like a regular cup of coffee but like a full on like espresso, like something really strong.
Mm.
And I'm like, well, if you have to take that to be able to like perk up after what you just ate, then obviously it's not doing you any good.
Right.
And I've gone decaf, so it's like I'm not running on caffeine or whatever.
Mm.
Do you drink coffee, Tom? I don't remember if you drink coffee.
Yeah, but it's just kind of sporadically. I used to drink it every day, and then it just kind of started falling off my radar. Especially, I just wasn't around people who were drinking it all the time.
Yeah.
And then today I got to my dad's, and I was sitting there, everybody just sitting around talking. Basically, my dad's like, "You want coffee? Okay. You want coffee? Okay. You want coffee?" We were just sipping coffee all day. So I probably had more coffee today than I had in the last month combined or something.
Well, at least you're not like Justin on coffee.
No, it doesn't affect me that much usually. Sometimes every once in a while I get a hold of some crazy cup of coffee and I'm like, woo. But I don't jump around like a jackhammer like Justin.
I get
Holy
kind of
cow.
crazy. I get kind of crazy. I'm probably a little amped today because I did have tea at the Chinese restaurant, and we were
Mhm.
waiting for so long for the food that I just kept drinking more and more tea.
Hmm.
But did we cover all of our stinky? Whoa, we didn't talk about earwax. I don't know whether earwax is affected by carnivore.
Um, I don't know the answer. I could only speculate that, sometimes more earwax will be produced because of allergic reactions, histamines or whatever, because it's kind of the mechanism for cleaning out the ear.
Oh.
And so sometimes when people, they're sneezing, coughing, or whatever, you do produce more earwax. So, but I don't really know. I didn't really notice much difference. Of course, when you get a bad cold or something, you can have more earwax. Have you noticed any difference?
Um, Not so much. I mean, I never really had a lot to begin with. So,
Mm.
and I feel like Asians, we have kind of like dry, flaky earwax. At least that's my theory. And it's like not so like gooey, but I'm not sure if that's true.
Well, one time when I was sick, I could totally hear something in my ear. It was driving me crazy. So I ordered one of those cameras so you can look in your ear.
Ugh.
Big mistake. It was scary in there.
Ew.
And there's this blob of wax that looked like Jabba the Hutt sitting in front of my eardrum. And
Did
that's
you
what
do
I
the
was hearing.
candle? Did you do the candle to get it out? Those ear candles?
No, you know what I did is I just took a regular squirt bottle, filled it up with warm
Ooh,
soap water,
yeah.
and just irrigated the ear, and then all the little pieces of wax just fell out in the sink. Yeah.
Did the big old piece come out?
No, I mean, it looked huge on the camera, but it was tiny. It was
Oh,
just a speck, but it was touching the eardrum when the eardrum would move.
ah,
So it was like I was hearing this like sticking. It would stick to the eardrum and then let go, like it was like peeling plastic apart or something, kind of.
ugh.
But you inside your ear, there's little hairs and stuff, and then like I was trying to clean my ear out, so it was kind of red and sore, and there's this little sporadic patches of wax in there, and I loaded up a squirt bottle, irrigated my ears, and looked in there, and they're sparkly clean. So,
Oh, that's funny that you could look again after and see that it was all clean.
but it literally looks like an alien horror film inside your ear.
That
So,
is disgusting that you
yeah,
actually looked at it with the camera.
yeah, yeah. It's like getting a whole body scan. It's not for the faint at heart. It's the kind of stuff that'll keep you up at night. You're like,
Ew.
how many discs are because I got the whole body scan and then reading this laundry list of hernias and
Oh my god.
fractures and compressed discs,
How did
and
you
then they
get a full they who does that? Who like writes up the whole thing for you?
well, it's mostly generated by software, but then a doctor looks at what the software sees and then looks because the one I did was a CAT scan, and ideally you would do an MRI because the CAT scan uses X-ray
Yeah.
radiation, and the MRI just uses magnets, which don't hurt anything. So, but I was wanted the CAC score, the coronary
Yeah.
artery calcium score, but that was included with the whole torso for like $400.
Oh, that's a pretty good price.
Yeah, so I did that, and then I was focused on the CAC scan, but then they did spot a nodule on one of my lungs.
Oh.
So I went back to, I took that to my regular doctor and showed him. And he was like, okay, we monitor it and see if it changed. And it didn't, because it was cancer, it would grow or something like that. He said, but this type of nodule can just be scar tissue from, being sick. It could have been decades ago. You had like a bad lung infection and you've got this little scar tissue in your lung. And he's like, so they just monitored it for, I don't know, 3 years and nothing changed. So they said it's not changing, so it's not cancer. So
Wow.
there's nothing to do about it. It's not like they're gonna cut your lung open and take a piece of scar tissue out. So
Ugh. How was your CAC score?
I think I had a 6 or 7 or something like that.
Out of what? Oh
I don't know. We know people that have like scores of like 1,500.
my god, that's pretty impressive then.
I think Raymond Nazon, his score was 600, 300. I can't remember.
Really?
And his is quite a bit higher than mine. Sean got a 0. In fact, Sean and I got it done at the same place. I just happened, he had it done. He did a video about it, and I just happened to ask him. And because we kind of lived in the same area, so um,
Interesting, because
I
I
just
think
wanted to
Aaron's
go into.
was 0 too, which is like I was surprised. Oh, it says it can be from 0 to infinity.
Yeah, so
What?
there's people that have like, because it's not, it's a calcified blockage throughout the coronary arteries, right? So there's a lot of places it can build up.
Mhm.
There's one classic place where it builds up on the left side. in the large, but there's other places where it builds up as well. So there's could be a cumulative score of blockage, right?
Oh, it would really be cool if you could do it over time, and see if with carnivore if it like improves. Because I always wonder,
Yes,
oh,
for sure.
does it just stick to like whatever? Like, let's say you weren't a carnivore and you were at like 5, and then like it would just. I wonder if it would just stay at 5 because you're not doing any new damage.
Right. Good
So
question.
getting repaired to go back down to 0,
And for what I gathered, like the closest interval you want to do is maybe like 5 years. Because even if because you don't accumulate the plaque that fast usually, right? And then
Oh,
the plaque has to be covered with calcium,
interesting.
and that's a whole process. It doesn't happen overnight. But I had the same idea that I'd eventually repeat it. And then I was wondering, well, if I've got, damaged discs in my back, would they look better 5 years later, 10 years
Oh
later? If I
yeah,
had, hernias that they spotted, would they change? So, over time, I was like, I even got one of those inversion tables because I was thinking, well, if I made a regular habit of hanging a little bit and
yeah,
stretching out my spine, maybe that would help the disc go back to the damaged disc, go back to a regular shape.
right. Did you do it? Did you do the inversion table?
I have one and I haven't used it in a while. I kind of just forgot about it, but I should totally. I'll blame Justin because I put it away when Justin came.
Oh,
So we had
thanks.
more room. So it's his fault.
You should take it back out. That seems like something that would be good to do.
Totally. Yeah, it's already here. I might as well use it, right?
Yeah, I always wanted an inversion table. Like, if you have one, you can
Here's
totally.
a trick. People buy them. They spend
Yeah.
hundreds of dollars on them, never use them, and then they sell them on, Facebook or Craigslist for dirt cheap.
Oh, but
So I bought.
they take up space though, right? So I
Yeah,
probably.
I mean it folds up pretty flat. The one I have folds up pretty. I mean, you could fold it up against a wall or something.
Maybe I'll look on Craigslist. I would love to have an inversion table. I feel like that just sounds so relaxing to me to be sitting on that.
I had the one I bought. I think originally sold for $200-300, and I bought it in perfect condition for $40.
Really?
Yeah,
What would it be under? Appliances
just inversion table,
for sale.
and there's all kinds of them. I mean, if you have a certain kind of back problem or whatever, there's ones that have these like um
Oh, I
they're
see.
movable pieces that you lay your back on, and then some massage and all this stuff. Mine's just a regular padded like board that you hang your feet, you get your feet in there and then you tilt backwards.
Oh, I see. They're pretty cool. They have
Yeah.
a lot. You're right on Craigslist.
Yeah, so you don't necessarily need to go out and buy a new one. You can get nice used stuff easy, probably in your own neighborhood.
You're right. There's some all around the Bay Area here. It is one of those things that people just buy, huh?
Hmm.
And they have.
Well, I probably should go. I got a few things yet to do this evening, but it was
Okay.
great chat. Thanks everybody watching. Good to
Yeah.
hear from you, Raymond Neff and Christina.
Thank
And
you for the
I
tip
think,
about the hydrogen peroxide. I'm going to do that.
yeah, why not? Give it a try. I'll try it too. Mr. TLC658, thanks for dropping in. Margie Martinez, Dad, you are Miss Patricia. Thanks everybody. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope to see you guys next week. Till next time, eat some meat, feel better, and whatever you do,
Yeah.
don't
Don't
fall
let
down
that
the cart
card
hole.
hole.